Greetings. Happy Tuesday. Welcome into the Steve Deace Show here live and on demand on BlazeTV, radio, and podcast. I'm Steve Deace. He's Todd Erzin. He's Aaron McIntyre. Coming up on today's show, we've got two guests for you today. We're going to discuss the problem with men and modern American ministry with Rick Burgess from Rick and Bubba coming up at the bottom of the hour. And then we're going to talk to a promising candidate out of Kentucky, TJ Roberts, here towards the end of the show. Next hour, we're going to put Pop Culture Tuesday and Idolatry or Not together into one long-form conversation. And I'll explain how we're going to do that when the time comes in the next hour. Don't forget, we are brought to you by our friends over at First Cup Coffee Company. They're the Christian-owned Patriot Coffee Company with a flavor for every freedom-loving American. If you want to try it or you want to try it again, go to firstcup.com and use the promo code DACE. That's firstcup.com, promo code DACE, and get 10% off at firstcup.com, promo code DACE. And you'll get an additional 10% off for the life of your subscription at firstcup.com with the promo code DACE. And without further ado, therefore, let's get to it. Here's Aaron's rundown of what happened while we were away.
What happened while we were away brought to you by a bad day for commie LARPers. Columbia University is among the universities across the country who have started disciplining students who failed to disperse from their live-action commie role-playing encampments at that university and others. Fox News interviewed one pro-Hamas orc at the noted university about an incident where the mob held a janitor captive.
Do you feel like it was right to hold 3 of the janitor workers hostage inside of the building?
I think that's a really false narrative.
Do you think October 7th and the attack that happened is a false narrative? Do you believe that some of the women were raped?
My colleague just came back.
So this is what happened.
Can you get out of my face, please?
Meanwhile, at UCLA, a truly bananas story. You're going to understand why I used the term bananas in just a little bit. The story goes that there were signs all over the UCLA commie encampment warning LARPers that there was a pro-Hamas orc amongst them who was allergic to bananas. So the story goes, a pro-Israel counter LARPer joined the crowd and proudly started downing bananas, as you can see here. That's why I said this was a bananas story. Meanwhile, in Florida, the University of Florida released a statement yesterday saying many of the protesters on that campus were outside agitators. The statement read, quote, "The University of Florida is not a daycare and we do not treat protesters like children. They knew the rules, they broke the rules, and they'll face the consequences." Several arrests have been made. In other news, prosecutors said this week they'll not retry an Arizona rancher whose trial in the fatal shooting of a trespassing Mexican man on his property ended last week with a deadlocked jury. Jurors in the trial of George Allen Kelly were unable to reach a unanimous decision on a verdict after more than 2 days of deliberation. Santa Cruz County Superior Court Judge Thomas Fink declared a mistrial back in April 22nd. Texas and Florida are two states suing the Biden administration over its unlawful attempts to change Title IX. In a statement, Governor DeSantis of Florida says Biden is abusing his constitutional authority to push an ideological agenda that harms women and girls and conflicts with the truth. Meanwhile, in West Virginia, you remember those 5 female high school athletes who refused to compete against a dude recently? They've all been reportedly banned from competing in sports at their school. As Riley Gaines noted, instead of banning the mentally ill dudes from competing against women, they're banning women from having the gall for not competing against men. According to the small business rent report from the online platform Alignable and reported by Bloomberg, 43% of small businesses were unable to pay their rent in full due to economic headwinds this month. That's the highest rent delinquency rate since March of 2021. Former Democrat Congresswoman and presidential candidate turned independent Tulsi Gabbard tells Dave Rubin she's interested in joining Donald Trump's ticket as VP.
So if you get the call, I've heard you answer this at least once already, but I sense that the momentum is going to go in that way. Like, you ready?
I'm ready. I'm ready because I know what is at stake in a deep and visceral way in this election. I'm not on a ballot. I could be home right now in Hawaii and surfing and kicking back and,
I was going to say, I know what you'd
relaxing.
Be doing. You'd be surfing. Yeah.
But I have chosen, I won't be home until after this election is done because I know what's at stake. And if that call came, I would say yes, and I'd be honored to serve my country in that way.
Drew Barrymore, your thoughts?
I've been thinking that we really all need a tremendous hug in the world right now.
Yeah.
But in our country, we need you to be Mamala of the country.
And now's the part of the montage where we meet MSNBC's Katie Tur, noted Trump apologist. Here she is with Nancy Pelosi.
Donald Trump has the worst record of job loss of any president. So we just have to make sure people know.
That was a global pandemic.
He had the worst record of any president. We've had other concerns in our country. If you want to be an apologist for Donald Trump, that may be your role.
Learning Chinese today. Today's phrase is, poor Katie, Grandma P didn't take her 345 martini in Zoloft again.
可怜的凯蒂 Grandma P 没有再给她喝3.415分的马提尼和佐洛夫。
Elsewhere on MSNBC, here's former Bush White House alum Nicole Wallace.
This time next year, I might not be sitting here. There might not be a White House Correspondents' Dinner or a free press. While our democracy wouldn't exactly fall apart immediately without it, the real threat looms larger.
Vivek Ramaswamy was at some event over the weekend where he made these comments.
It's going to be every one of you, every one of us, doing our part as well for this country. And when we face our founding fathers in the afterlife, and they ask us, what sacrifice did you make for your country? We better have a damn good answer for them, and we will.
And finally, the Babylon Bee interviews a Hamas terrorist over their goals in Gaza.
Thank you for being here tonight. What are the pressing needs of your people? What goals is it that you're working for? What deep and lasting vision are you looking to implement in the region?
I just want to kill the Jews.
Well, we might have a little bit of a language barrier here. So, because I think what you mean is that you just want to enact justice against those who are restricting your freedoms, of course.
Maybe I wasn't clear. I apologize. We want to kill all Jews who are restricting our freedom to kill more Jews.
But just so our viewers understand, when you say kill all Jews, it's a metaphor. You don't mean that literally. Much like from the river to the sea, it is an aspirational call for freedom and human rights.
Exactly. It is our aspiration to kill all Jews from the river to the sea.
And that's what happened while we were away.
That's not parody, actually. It's not parody. It's our stated agenda. It's in writing, in fact. Aaron's Montage brought to you by our friends over at Preborn. As Mother's Day approaches, let's highlight for you an organization that cares about moms, and that is Preborn. Their networks of clinics offer love, life, and support to pregnant women who are scared and alone and who are being pressured to make the ultimate choice, one that will not only sacrifice the life of their baby, but also at least a piece of their own heart. So when a distressed mother comes to Preborn, she's welcomed with open arms. She's offered a free ultrasound to see and hear the precious life inside of her. And the majority of the time that happens, she will choose life for her baby and for herself. This Mother's Day, you can help bring life to both a mom in need and her baby. Just one ultrasound is only $28. 5 ultrasounds, just $140. If you're a business owner, perhaps you can consider a larger donation for a write-off, because we know the government isn't working on saving babies. A donation of $1,000, $2,000, maybe even $20,000. All gifts are tax deductible and will reach eternity. So get involved today. Dial pound 250, say the keyword baby. That's pound 250, keyword baby, or visit preborn.com/Steve. That's preborn.com/Steve. All right, let's try to tackle several of the items in Aaron's montage that we can. Let's start at the top. So I just want to make sure everybody understands here. We read for you the story yesterday. I want to make sure I get this woman's name correctly. 88-year-old Eva Adel, who is looking at perhaps spending the rest of her life in prison for peaceably praying and protesting at a place where children are murdered. However, if you belligerently disrupt campus life at an Ivy League university, including making threats against your fellow students, we good? Right? Just want to make sure I got that.
That is the math.
Wait, that's the math? Okay, so, okay. So there's that. Number 2, why hasn't every single state signed on to the Florida lawsuit against Biden for Title IX? Every single red state, I should say. Every single red state.
But, yeah, 2 out of how many?
Right. Thank you for mentioning Texas and Ken Paxton. I misspoke there, so thank you for correcting me on that. So why hasn't, what is there? I think there's 31, or is it 29, something like that?
Well,
it's a majority of red states. Or a majority of states have red state governors, okay? So then why haven't they all signed on to this?
Well, one was Texas independently. The other one isn't it a coalition of like 4 SEC? I mean, it's South Carolina, Alabama. I think there's 2 other southern schools that signed on to the same one, I think.
Okay, well, okay. Why? Let me ask again. Why hasn't every single red state signed on to this? Every single one. Why hasn't every single one? Number 2, if you want to disrupt some things, I think some dads in West Virginia maybe ought to just have a nice seat right there on the track at today's track, or whatever the next day's track festivities are there in West Virginia. Just have a nice seat right there on the track. Grab a cup of coffee, a Snickers, maybe a beer, and just have a seat. And this isn't going on anymore. We're not this will no longer happen or take place until this insanity and monstrosity ends. Stuff like that.
And I misspoke. Todd, correct me if I'm wrong. These were actually middle schoolers, not high schoolers.
Oh, wasn't even
right?
high schoolers?
Middle schoolers.
My gosh.
Yeah. Why don't red states? Why don't conservatives? Why don't Christians? This is a lament that's getting frickin' old, people.
We do know that this stuff's just not going to magically go away, right? We do know this. Maybe we don't. I'm going to save Tulsi for last because it's going to tie into something else we're going to talk about here in a second. This is saying something given the era that we're in. But that clip of Kamala Harris and Drew Barrymore is absolutely among the dumbest things I have ever seen in my life. I mean, it's beyond self-parody. Like, I got a memo. We're launching a parody and satire team here at the Blaze. You guys get that one? You didn't get that one, Aaron?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I got a memo on that. Maybe they just sent it to
is that the one you forwarded to me?
Yeah. So we're launching a parody and satire production team here. Remember when they didn't do another season of Black Mirror because they weren't sure?
I gave up after 1 episode. So
I know you did because one episode and you're like, this is 60 minutes. It's not a TV show. All right, this is what's happening in the culture. I can't do this anymore.
That was before.
It's not even fiction.
That was before COVID.
Yes,
that was
it was.
God talking to me and saying, sit tight. Just wait, because
something wicked this way comes.
I'm rolling tape here.
Yes. All right. Yeah, they put off doing a season of Black Mirror a few years ago because they struggled to come up with storylines that were actually outrageous but plausible given what was happening in the West. All right. I want this new satire and parody team that we are launching at the Blaze. Godspeed. I wish you well. If y'all can come up with something better than Drew Barrymore looking at Kamala Harris saying, we need Mamala. If you've got something better than that, I'm impressed. I am impressed.
Well, you can't outdo them, and they're still winning. You got to turn all the cannons on our side. The storylines you mentioned.
I know. I know. And I know it won't seem like it to many people. Aaron, did you put the Drew Barrymore? No, you didn't. Because Vivek is further down on your list. Okay. I know because it plays to our sensibilities that this won't seem as dumb, but it is.
Amen.
It is. Having a guy who's out there campaigning to be the running mate for the Republican Party, supposedly the representative of the opposition to the moronic excess of Drew Barrymore and Kamala Harris. I promise you, the only thing worse than the patriarchy is going to be the matriarchy. I promise you. I promise you it'll be the only thing worse than the patriarchy will be the matriarchy. I promise. That's Exhibit A. Drew Barrymore and Kamala Harris, Exhibit A. All right? But as dumb as that is, the idea that it's an applause line, that in the afterlife here in America, this is an applause, not in the Shogun pre-missionary Far East of the 7th century Marco Polo, okay? But here in America, it's an applause line for someone campaigning to be the next vice president of the United States to say that you will give an account and be judged in the afterlife by other human beings. No, you won't. And holding up, I love this country. I am doing a series of Christian children's books trying to recover our lost Christian heritage. The next one we'll do in 2 years will be on America's 250th birthday. But I promise you, the absolute quickest way to make sure we don't have a 251st birthday will not be the insanity of what Kamala Harris and Drew Barrymore are doing. That's no different than the guy in the ponytail. Aaron won't even remember this. It was before he was born. Remember the guy in the ponytail at the 1992 debate, the town hall debate with Clinton, Perot, and Bush, and he got up and said, "Where are your children?" Do you remember that? That was 30 years ago. Do you remember that? Sure. Guy. Rush did 5 years of shows on that guy. Literally. They played that clip on his show for like a decade. That was 30 years ago. We can survive that. As dumb as it is, as awful as it is, as stupid as it is, as moronic as it is, we can survive that. Do you know what we won't survive? When supposedly the answer to that is that we are accountable to humans and not God, the only living God in the afterlife. That we won't survive. We will not survive that. You will not be accountable to anybody in the afterlife other than Christ. I don't care if you don't believe that. Gravity doesn't care if you believe in it. Inertia doesn't care if you believe in it. The laws of physics and thermodynamics do not care if you don't believe in it. Math doesn't care if you don't believe in it. Your vertical leap doesn't care if you don't believe in it. Things are not true based on what you believe. You need to believe things that are true. And what is true is the only being any of us will ever be accountable to in the afterlife is Christ. And there is no amount of greatness you will achieve in this life that will matter at that moment. You either, this side of eternity, will receive his atonement that he bled and died for you out on a wooden cross, or you will spend the other side of eternity apart from him. Period. End of sentence. That's all there is. There isn't any more. And the people who founded this country, the Puritans, and many of the people who fought the revolution that freed it, believed that. That is pagan. You'll be accountable to the spirits of your ancestors? No, you won't. No, you won't. Some of your ancestors did great things for America. They're in hell now because they were sinners too. This is not a special country. It's not a prophetically important country. It's an exceptional one. There's a difference. Now, what makes it exceptional? The creeds that it was founded on. When we live by them. But if we're not going to live by those creeds anymore, then it's not going to be an exceptional country anymore. It's just going to be a country. We can beat and overcome idiots. What we can't overcome is if our response to them is to also just do our own variation of turning our backs on our Creator and the ideals that founded our civilization. And they didn't come from Hinduism. They came from the Bible, Genesis to Revelation. I don't even know what to say on the Katie Tur thing. Thoughts and prayers for Katie for temporarily pretending to be a journalist there. Lessons have been learned, I am sure. During the break, she's like, won't do that again. So let's talk about Tulsi Gabbard and the Veep stakes. Because this actually links up with the Nicole C. Wallace story. Or is it D. Wallace? It doesn't matter. Nicole Wallace, there's this thing going on right now, and I see it even among people that on the right I would probably be the most aligned with at times, that the party is uniquely moving left because of Trump. That's actually not true. Trump actually moved the party to the right of where it was before he took over. The opposite is true.
And he never claimed to be a conservative.
And he never claimed to be a conservative.
Time.
The opposite is true. Okay, the opposite is true. Nicole Wallace sat next to my literary agent, Frank Breeden, my book agent. She had the cubicle next to him in the Bush White House. They sat next to each other. She had a prominent position in the George W. Bush White House, Nicole Wallace did. Joe Scarborough, her colleague at the network, he originally tried to bill himself as a Contract with America Republican congressman. You're pissed off about Trump's devolution on abortion? You should be. But please don't come to me and act like this is a new thing. It's not any different than the language John McCain and Mitt Romney used. Now, you could argue it's dumber to do it it's dumber to think you're going to overturn Roe and then get away with, massaging the abortion issue. I would agree with that analysis, but it's not anything new. John McCain spent the entire 8 years of the George W. Bush administration amassing and forming gangs to push that administration to the left at every opportunity he had. That's why Rush hated him. Mitt Romney gave Barack Obama his worst idea, government health care, before he had it, and has literally betrayed us on every possible issue. He's the father of gay marriage. He shut down Catholic charities over gay adoptions long before any of us knew what a RFRA was, had ever heard the phrase bake the cake bigot. He told Catholic charities in Massachusetts, you'll either give babies to homosexuals or shut down. So they shut down. Go watch the last debate between Obama and Romney in 2012. I think you'll count at least 12 times that Romney says, I agree with Barack Obama. We couldn't even get Mitt Romney to eat a chicken sandwich to win a presidential election, guys. And then George W. Bush, worst foreign policy decision maybe in American history. And then he closed it out with, sometimes you've got to suspend free market principles to save the free market. Absolutely the dumbest thing I've ever heard a politician say in my life. And that led to the TARP, which launched the Tea Party. No, don't. This is not some new thing. Trump actually moved the party to the right. Now, did he do it unwittingly? Did he do it unsuspectingly? Did he do it willfully? I don't know, and I don't frankly care. I'm just stating facts. Because my prediction is he's going to pick Tulsi Gabbard for his running mate. Given the kind of campaign trajectory he is running, where he's running a very Romney-esque campaign, just take my base for granted. They got to vote for me, nothing else they can do. And let me just move to the left on everything. And pretend like I did not previously have a record as president that was actually to the right of many of the things I'm trying to run to the left on now. It's in line with that. She's in line with his hiring patterns. strong and very attractive woman. She lines up. That's why I'm predicting it. But the amount of people that made it look like this would be some new in my feed when I brought this up again last night. I predicted this before, by the way, but the amount of people that made it look like this is some new violation of orthodoxy. No, it's not. We once had a ticket not too long ago of Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan. That was the ticket. That was the ticket, guys. Saying that out loud made myself laugh. Saying that out loud. 12 years ago, we ran Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan as a ticket. And you guys, suddenly some people want to act like this is now new. It's a suddenly new thing. No, it's not. This is the frustration of the Trump era. Is rhetoric and record are all over the place, and so it simultaneously feeds both narratives. If you want a narrative that you can come up with actual facts to show he was a good president overall and the country was much better off overall than it was before than it is now, you can absolutely do that. Frankly, I think the best Trump commercial I've seen yet is Nicole Wallace saying, if Trump is president, there won't be a White House Correspondents' Dinner anymore. Todd, I saw you going online looking up how to get an absentee ballot. Just as soon as Nicole Wallace said that, right? You were Googling absentee ballots, Polk County, Iowa.
Like
correct?
To vote today, please.
Yes, exactly. That's if I just run that commercial. If I was Dan Scavino at the Trump campaign, we're just going to run on that, okay? Because everybody hates these people. Literally everybody. So then again, if you want to create a narrative about he betrayed us on this, betrayed us on that, died on the vine over COVID, you could do all that too. It is true that he had the worst job loss of all time. It's that Katie Tur Nancy Pelosi clip is perfect. What Nancy Pelosi said is factually true. What Katie Tur said is factually true. That's why everybody's all over the place. That's why we're always pointing swords at each other over this. Everybody's narrative is confirmed by every aspect of his presidency. But please do not act like he is some new provocateur of moving the party to the left. He actually moved it to the right. His endorsement ranks are not good overall. But before Trump, the idea that a J.D. Vance could get elected senator would have never happened in a million years. Now, you could argue, as our colleague Daniel Horowitz does, and he's correct, that for every J.D. Vance Trump gave us, he gave us 5 or 6 horribles, right?
Yes.
But before Trump, you were only getting horribles. So that's progress to some people. If you go from 0 to 2, that's 200% improvement. Okay? Do you see what I mean? We can make this narrative look any way we want, but we cannot lie to each other. This was not some party that graduated from Morton Blackwell's Leadership Institute and took the platform and just of the Leadership Institute and put it into practice in its governance. It was anything but, which is why people were desperate enough to try a guy who was a reality TV star with no record, because they'd been betrayed by everybody else. I'll stop there. Gentlemen, your thoughts on that or anything else I've said?
Glad to be back, Aaron.
What?
Just amazing. I mean, I just the Katie Tur interview there. The fact that old lady has dominated American politics for so long, and she and her with that willful level of deceit right in front of your face, and to the very press that carries all the water for her, it's a perfect. I laughed out loud.
I know, and he did.
I couldn't stop laughing.
He did, yeah.
Because it's that encapsulates so much is going on. It should mean that they get away with nothing, but they get away with everything, and that says something about us more than them.
Come back and let's discuss how do we get men back into the church. We'll do that here in a moment. All right, Back here on the Steve Deace Show, brought to you by our friends over at Freedom Project Academy. Have you seen the garbage they're pushing in our schools these days? Of course you have. And you're watching the result of a generation of permitting that with what's going on in our college campuses right now. So parents, listen up. If you don't want to lose another generation of the spirit of the age, but you're concerned, I mean, what options do I have? Maybe you're in an economic situation where you don't have time to homeschool, for example. That's where Freedom Project Academy comes in, built on Judeo-Christian values and a classical curriculum. What does that mean? It means they're going to help your kids learn how to think, not teach them what to think. It's about creating critical thinking, not indoctrination. They've perfected online learning, offering live, on-demand homeschool courses for students K through 12, fully accredited as well. And we had our own son Noah enrolled in FPA for a couple of years when he was younger. I saw firsthand how good these guys are at doing this. I've known some of the people associated with this academy for many years. We fought together against Common Core back in the day. So I can personally recommend that you check them out. All right. Right now, you can save 10% on tuition when you enroll at freedom4school.com. That's FOR, freedom4school.com. That's freedom4school.com. Get a free information packet as well at freedom4school.com. Well, one of the reoccurring conversations on our show usually includes the following question. Where are the men? Where are the men? Let's see if we can come to some answer to that and how to get to the men, how to reach the men, how to get the men back into church. How about how to get some actual men in the pulpits and more? Rick Burgess is here. Many of you know him as the co-headliner of Rick and Bubba. It is good to have you with us here. Rick, how you doing, brother?
Steve, I feel like maybe you do. There are people that have tried to continue to put us together. I mean, really, I'm on your show right now because an emailer had just had enough. He was like, you and Steve are talking about this same problem. Y'all both are trying to address it. Y'all need to get together and have a conversation and team up. And, of course, you know, I was we were out so excited about, you know, when Nefarious, the movie, I was just talking with some of the guys a minute ago, outstanding movie and helping you promote that. So really, really well done. So it's an honor to finally be officially on the show.
Thank you very much, brother. It is good to make the connection formalized for sure. So let's start with a very simple, but I think poignant question about the overall state of things. Where are the men? Why we have Moms for Liberty? Where are the men? We played so many videos during COVID of, you know, homeschool moms who went into the drugstore to test the mask Nazis on their own. Where were the men? We're seeing middle schoolers in West Virginia. The girls now are being suspended because they don't want to compete against men or against boys. Where are their dads? We watched when this all began about 2 years ago at this time with Leah Thomas, and we watched a bunch of dads just sit there in the stands scrolling on their phones and everything else while their daughters are getting absolutely raced in the field of competition, which I would imagine those dads spent a good deal of money out of their own pocket to subsidize their daughters getting that far in athletics. You'd think they'd have an interest in that, if nothing else, but nope. So again, where are the men?
Well, I think that men, we have been feminized. There's no doubt about that. And when I say that, I don't want you to misinterpret, or people out there to misinterpret that. What's happened is we have lost God's original design. And anytime we do that, we have a problem. Men and women are completely equal in value, completely equal. There's nothing inferior about a woman to a man or a man to a woman. However, both were made beautifully distinct. And to say otherwise is to live in a fake world. Even if you don't believe in the God that you and I serve, you can look at this and find this to really be evident, we believe, by a creator. And so what's happened is men have somehow, we've made a pick, and we've decided that the world would be better off if it was run by women and there are no men. Now, I would say, and my wife laughs about this, anyone who thinks that women are going to be less violent and less vicious than men, they must not have any women in their lives or ever watched women try to get along. So that's foolish in and of itself. But I think what's happened with men is we have we've kind of gone off into our own little world. The world really isn't speaking to us. And sadly, which is the call on my life right now, the church isn't speaking to men. We're trying to work to change that, and we are seeing some good results. So men have just kind of knocked it out of gear. They've let women take over all the headship and leadership roles and rules that God designed for men. And I think men just have become passive. They're just kind of like, I don't want to get my hands dirty. I don't want to get involved in that. And I think, unfortunately, men believe if they ever take their God-given role and they are truly masculine, and I'm talking about a Christ-centered masculinity, that they'll be vilified by society, so they just don't want to do it.
Let's talk about the church. I know why the men aren't in the church. I know why the church doesn't want to reach out to the men, because a man who gets connected is going to demand engagement. He doesn't want to just sit there. Let's just have a breakfast every Saturday where we're going to pray and do the same thing and confess the same sins over and over again. I did that for a couple of weeks. Now I've got kids and wives and lawns. I've got duties. So a man needs a mission. Most suburban evangelical megachurches, which is most of evangelicalism's connection to America, don't want engagement of the culture. They don't want friction with the culture. They go out of their way to avoid it. So we don't want to encourage the men, because the men will then say there needs to be some friction. My eyes are open. Someone's got to do something about this. So the church is playing right into keeping the men asleep, because it makes it easy for them too. Just turn them into tithing units that walk their wives into church every single Sunday. So how do we change that in the church?
First of all, let me say amen. So here is the problem, and it's what we're trying to do. That's why the manchurch.com was created. I noticed something as a follower of Christ, that when I was called out because of the platform that God's given us, and people started saying, hey, why don't you come speak? And we'd love for you to come speak. And started out speaking to youth, and then, hey, why don't you come speak? And when I would sit and talk with pastors, it was 9 out of 10. And I'm only saying it's not 10 out of 10, I think, to be nice. I would talk to the pastors. I say, hey, tell me about the church. This conversation, Steve, literally happened one just like this yesterday, 24 hours ago. Okay. And I was talking to a church, and he said, oh, our church is doing great. Our membership is up. Our children's ministry is thriving. Our youth ministry is thriving. Our women's ministry is thriving. We're building new buildings. We just bought some new land. And I said, so tell me about the men's ministry. In silence. And most of the time, the pastors, if I'm in the room, they'll actually look down and start fidgeting. We just don't have much, any real functioning men's ministry. And I will say, well, let me ask you a question that's difficult, because this is what we said. Did you preach Father's Day? And I know the answer to this, Steve, and you do too. Did you preach from the pulpit on Father's Day that God has given the spiritual leadership role and headship of the family to the man, and that the man has more influence in the home, in the church, and in society than anyone else in the home, in the church, in society? Did you preach that on Father's Day? And you tell men they were not leading their families. Yes. I said, and then did you tell them that and then give them a terrible men's ministry? Why is it men's ministry the most important ministry in the church? If we believe that, either we don't believe what we say on Father's Day, we're just making it up, or there's something terribly wrong, because if you say that and then you're not reaching and discipling men with intentionality and aggressively and challenging them and now teaching them to be those spiritual leaders, either you don't believe it. And I talked to Ken Harrison, who has started Promise Keepers back. And I said, when the Promise Keepers were just doing these giant events in the 90s, where did it fail? And he said it. Pat Morley talks about it in the book, Man in the Mirror. He said where it failed, he said, we went out and challenged men. We had incredible events, and we thought that was our role. It's not like we didn't know. And we thought when these men went back into the local church with a new fervor to follow Jesus, they would be discipled. And he said, and we grossly miscalculated that. And so like Pat Morley said, he said, most churches want to talk to men and talk about the disease, but they're not willing. Talk about the symptoms, but they're not willing to go and treat the disease. We have men's ministry. It's almost like going to the doctor, and the doctor says, you're sick, you're sick, you're sick. And you go, are you going to treat it? No, we're not going to treat it. So that doesn't make any sense. So what we have done with themanchurch.com is we have put together a discipleship plan that will reach and disciple men the way God made us, because you can't reach and disciple us if you keep treating us like women and children. Men and women are equal, but they're beautifully distinct. And frankly, most Western churches do not talk to men the way God made them. But we are working day and night to change that, and we are getting incredible results in the churches that are implementing this.
That's pardon me. That's great to hear, Rick. There are a lot of pastors in this audience, and I hear from them all the time. So if one of them's listening right now, and he's like, all right, give me a couple of practical things I can do right now to reach the men, what would you tell them?
I would say, let's stop doing things thinking men's ministry. Let me tell you what a lot of pastors are doing. Now, this is changing. They say they have a men's ministry, but when you really look at it, all they're doing is fellowshipping. Well, fellowship's important, but that's not discipleship. And we call fellowship discipleship. If the men are just eating a prayer breakfast or doing a wild game feast, and you've got some coach and athlete that comes in and awkwardly tries to take their sports stories and press them down on scripture every now and then, that's not a high-functioning men's ministry. That's just hanging out. And there's something to be said for fellowship, but it's not discipleship. What we would say is go to themanchurch.com, and let's put together, as Scripture calls us to, 3 times a year, God told Moses, bring me the men. He did that in Exodus 34:23 and in Deuteronomy 16:16. So there's precedent that men need to be pulled out of the church, out of their homes, and set down in front of somebody who says, I'm speaking today out of the Word of God to you men and what God's called you to do. Then you got to set up. You can't just tell men they're supposed to take this role. You have to train them in order to do it. You have to equip them. If all you do is challenge them and you don't equip them, they're just frustrated. So what we have done is something we couldn't find anywhere. We actually have 40-week curriculum, multiples. We have 4 of them. We have a 5th one coming out this summer, that your men will leave these gatherings, and then they'll actually go into small groups that are facilitated by men of the church, and they'll be challenged, and they'll go deep into the Word of God, and they will begin to learn. My wife just spoke at a women's conference this past Saturday. She said women were coming up to me in droves saying, please thank your husband for themanchurch.com. Our church implemented it. My husband is in the Word of God, and he's being radically changed and is taking the role as spiritual leader. I'm not a Jezebel. I didn't want to circumvent or usurp his power in the house. I just had to lead because he wouldn't. This strategy is changing them. Why is it changing them? Because we're getting them into small groups and studying the Word of God. Jesus Christ actually said, men, if you're out there, that we are to deny ourselves, count the cost. What cost? Well, I'll tell you one thing. It'll cost us our sin for sure. Might cost you your job, might cost you your relationship, but it will cost you, might cost you your life, but it will cost you your sin. And then he said, pick up your cross, die daily, and become the new creation in Christ, and enter a narrow gate to follow me, where the path will be hard. And most of you, Jesus said in Matthew 7, aren't man enough to do it. Now, you have that message. What Jesus actually said, that most of us aren't man enough to follow him because the cost is too great. And suddenly men begin to sit up and go, what did he say? He said, Jesus said only a few men actually adopt following him. Well, men, when they hear that, as you just said earlier, it's a game changer. And we have a tone with our curriculum that speaks to men, because they're not women, they're not children. And now I will tell pastors this: if you're intimidated by the men knowing the Word of God as well as you do, you shouldn't do this. But if you'd like to have the greatest asset you could ever have, and that's a strong men's ministry that is sustainable and continues to go for years, we're ready to help.
That is outstanding, Rick. Where can people around the country take a look at what you guys have put together here? Where would you tell them to go?
Go to themanchurch.com and put the in front of it, because some guy wouldn't let me have manchurch.com. He's making a move. But it's themanchurch.com. You can go there. The whole strategy is there. You can get the curriculum there. You can go to contact, and if you have questions for us, we also have individual devotionals that aren't full curriculum, but they help individual men. This is our latest one, Sin Always Matters, a 31-day devotional that just came out for men. And you know what this does, Steve? We got to stop looking at sin through our eyes. We got to look and see how God sees it. And when we see how God sees sin and how destructive sin is, then we'll never cheapen his grace. So we take on those kind of challenges. All this has a tone of diving deep in the Word of God and understanding who God says he is. And let me tell all the men out there, anybody that told you that Jesus Christ is a hippie, they were wrong. And you'll find that out in our curriculum. It will be a Jesus that you will, if you're man enough, decide to repent of your sins, turn to him, and actually follow him.
Amen. themanchurch.com is where people can go, Rick, correct?
That's correct, and I'm just so thankful you allowed us on this platform, because you know that problem is there, and what we're saying is we understand the problem too, and we're trying to be a solution.
If there's any way I can help, brother, don't hesitate to ask. If you got my contact info, just let me know. All right. And Godspeed. Love what you're doing. Thank you. I'll check it out.
Thank you very much. Love to have you come speak at one of our gatherings.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Yeah, just let me know. You bet. Thank you, Rick.
How about?
Have you guys ever noticed that when men accomplish great things, it's like never preceded by like some, I just go and do your best. I just try hard. You ever notice that? Whether that's in the scriptures, a football team, or any form of athletic endeavor. I'm sure before they stormed the beaches of Normandy, just give it your all. So you ever notice that there's a certain tone, and this is what Rick is alluding to. When you want greatness from men, there's a certain tone that men need to be spoken to with. And that always precedes when men come together and do great things, is they are challenged in that way. And that's missing while we feminize everything.
You're saying that you tell them this is going to hurt, but it's going to be worth it, a version of that. Well, I mean, not part of that conversation, but it's underlying all of it. And you told me you hated me a couple weeks ago for telling, but it is underlying all that. What is one of the biggest reasons? Do you know how ridiculous it is that,
to be fair, I told you I hate you many other times. Just don't single this one time out, but go ahead.
Steve and Rick and Bubba have to tell pastors. Well, it's not that pastors, at least pastors that aren't woke, they know something's wrong. They're trying. It's not that they don't know this on some level. A lot of this, once again, has to do with tithing. The guys are wondering, I'm writing the check, aren't I? And the other guy's thinking, well, if I tell them this, they're not going to write that check. It's about it. That's a comfort part of this equation that is undeniable.
We'll come back. We're going to put idolatry or not and Pop Culture Tuesday into the same segment. I'll lay out how and why next. All right, back here on the Steve Deace Show, powered by you. And you can let us know what you think about what we think via the stevedeace.com inbox. That's steve@stevedeace.com is how you can email us. DEACE. Like us on Facebook, me, we, and Gab. Follow me at Steve Deace Show on Twitter, get our Instagram and TikTok. And you can also, if you are a podcast listener, if you wouldn't mind, leave us a 5-star review if you like the show, of course, and then hit subscribe, or if you're on iTunes, follow. And that way your feed will show our new episode every time we do one of those, and you won't have to wait for it. It'll be there right away for you. Thank you to all of you that have done that for us already. Thanks to our friends as well over at Backyard Butchers for sponsoring this part of the program. The majority of the meat in your grocery store meat aisle was probably imported from some rando country or countries from overseas. So how about, the product of the USA sticker means something? Again, That's where Backyard Butchers comes in. Texas-based company with the same values as you, dedicated to delivering the best deals in the market on high-quality beef. Your box will include all born and raised American beef from ranches right here in the heartland of America. American-raised and harvested. Backyard Butchers only uses source beef and chicken from American farms and delivers the cuts to your doorstep every single month, grass-fed and grain-finished. The meat tastes absolutely amazing. I think I mentioned this the last time we talked about Backyard Butchers. Was grilling burgers for the family dinner a couple of weeks ago, and we ran out of the Backyard Butchers grass-fed ones and had to run to the store and get the stuff in the meat aisle, and hey, it was pretty good. But the stuff from Backyard Butchers, man, I tried half of one and half of the other just to see how they turned out. I was blown away by how much better the meat was at Backyard Butchers. Blown away. And I cooked all the burgers. So that's your control group, right, Todd? I cooked them all. I seasoned them all. It was me. All right. And
this is science.
Indeed. Not the science, actual science. And one cut of meat was clearly superior to the other. So if you want to try it right now, save 20% off your first entire order when you go to backyardbutchers.com/Deace. Find out for yourself why they've got so many 5-star reviews. All right. Again, 20% off your entire first order at backyardbutchers.com/Deace. And if you subscribe, you'll get an additional 10% off and free shipping when you go to backyardbutchers.com/Deace. All right. Normally we do idolatry or not, and then we do Pop Culture Tuesday, the next segment. We have another guest coming up, promising State House candidate, a man who is actually trying to do something. So we thought today was a good day to highlight such an individual after the conversation we knew we were going to have with Rick Burgess from Rick and Bubba, right?
Yep.
So we're going to put them both together today, but we're going to invert it. All right. I want to start with Pop Culture Tuesday first. All right. Let me give you a hypothetical here. I put this poll out on Twitter yesterday. All right. So let's just say, hypothetically speaking, let's just say, hypothetically speaking, that Disney decided to create a series called Lesbians in Space as their next entry in their Star Wars franchise. And the showrunner was actually Harvey Weinstein's former personal assistant. I mean, just hypothetically speaking. Would that be something that you're like, well, I've been holding out on getting Disney Plus, but I can't miss this. So you got me. Take my money. Well, thousands of you voted in this poll. 93% of you said no. Now, 7% of you said yes, and I need you guys to understand that Lesbians in Space, this is Disney Plus, not Hustler Plus, all right? Because I've got to believe that's the only reason that 7% said yes to this. They were thinking it was a different kind of product, hypothetically speaking. No. Unironically and non-pornographically, this is, just hypothetically speaking, if Disney decided to create a product called Lesbians in Space and gave, say $100 million to Harvey Weinstein's former personal assistant to go out and write and direct and produce said series, does that sound like something that would be of interest to you, Todd? Just as a general hypothetical.
Can I comment on the poll?
Yeah.
You're lying. There's way more than 7% would watch it. Disney is America. America is Disney. It's a circle. The Venn diagram is a circle. Look at all the stuff going on in real life that you watch. Do you even Steve Deace Show, Aaron McIntyre montage, bro? Look at what's happened in the girls' sports. You said, yay! That mentally ill boy just beat all those girls. Yay! You would watch it. Don't lie to me.
Aaron, what about you? Are you in?
No.
That's not an Aaron and Bella weekend, splurge?
No. Who's... we already know the showrunner. Now, if this was being produced by like some right wing, if this was going to be pillaring, the rainbow jihad.
So Crusaders in space?
That would be hilarious, maybe.
Todd, would you watch Crusaders in space?
I would not watch this.
Talk to me.
All right, enough laughs. Because what I just presented to all of you is not a hypothetical.
No.
It's not a hypothetical. I just described for you the exact circumstances of the next Disney Plus Star Wars series. That's exactly what it is.
Which one is it? I don't know.
It's called The Acolyte. And it takes place, post-COVID. They were trying to reinvent the Star Wars universe, and they came up with this thing called the High Republic era. All right? And they got this team of writers, almost all of them women, in a room, and came up with this idea of the High Republic era. So they're going to go back to the past and try to reinvent Star Wars by telling stories from the past. They published some books that didn't necessarily fare that well. The first series manifestation, and Disney spent at least $100 million on this, is called The Acolyte. It debuts soon. If you watch the trailer, it's literally lesbians in space. That's literally what it is. It is literally lesbians in space. And the showrunner is literally Harvey Weinstein's former personal assistant. It's not even a hype. That's crazy. What kind of a stupid idea is, well, it's a concept coming to market. And $100 million at least was spent on it. And the thing is, when you watch interviews with Harvey Weinstein's former assistant, what's funny about it is if you go back and look her up when she was with Harvey Weinstein, pleasant-looking woman, very feminine. Of course, Harvey Weinstein gets discredited, convicted, and now, man, my name's Large Marge. I mean, hard butch, dude. Hard butch. Todd, she's got a deeper voice than you, I promise. Actually, that's not saying much. Aaron, she's got a deeper voice than you, I promise.
Oh, no.
Absolutely. Hard butch. Hard. Like if I was coming up on her in a darkened alley, I'd grab my phone. I'm going to need one of my boys. That level of butch. Almost as if, I'm not saying, almost as if the penance that you pay for such a close association with the discredited Harvey Weinstein is, you guys remember when Weinstein, what his thing was when he was getting bounced? Do you remember what he did? Made that huge donation to some group to go after the NRA.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to fight against the guns, right? That was like his tithe. You guys remember that at the time? He made some obscene donation to some group going after Second Amendment rights. It's almost as if this woman is like, bleep, man, I gotta reinvent myself. So, maybe I was gay for this day. Maybe I was a little bit bi. Maybe I was a lipstick les. Hardcore. Orange is the new black. Flannel isn't masculine enough for me. Butch. Like a caricature. Like the late night specials warning us about the gay agenda that Pat Robertson and Jerry Falwell Sr. used to produce, and they would run at like 3 a.m. on your UHF channel. That kind of butch. Like leather chaps, every stereotype imaginable, butch. And she's running the new Star Wars series that's essentially lesbians in space. And she wants you to know, if you watch an interview, well, there's not really good, there's not really bad. $100 million on that.
People are going to watch it.
Are you sure about that?
Yes.
You are?
Yes.
Aaron, what do you think?
Yeah, because it's not named Lesbians in Space. directed by or showrun by Harvey Weinstein's former personal assistant. Is he out of jail now? I saw some headline.
One of his cases, I think he is.
Got
but then he had some
reversed.
hospital issue, and I think he's in a hospital now.
Gotcha.
I think I saw.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So yeah, people are going to watch this. It's Star Wars. It's not named lesbians in space. Okay, they're not going to be that overt with it. It's named Acolyte. That sounds edgy. So yeah, people will watch basically anything, at least for the first episode.
Well, they didn't watch She-Hulk. They didn't watch Secret Wars. People have been watching a lot of things lately. In fact, this is the point now in the conversation where I want to, pardon the pun, transition into idolatry or not. And I want to ask a question, and then I'm going to present some data to justify this question. Are most of these corporations, such as Disney, are most of them so lost now, so far gone to the spirit of the age, that they can no longer be pressured? That the commitment to the cause and the message is so cemented that no amount of financial losses will convince them otherwise? Let me give you some data here. 5 years ago, last weekend, Avengers Endgame came out. And in many respects, that is the final chapter on a lot of what we previously took for granted about pop culture and American cinema. I mean, it really is. I mean, we thought at the time, given some of the interviews Kevin Feige was giving, that the next phases will be about representation. He was already saying that, right? Remember, they kind of, ham-fistedly, there's a scene at the beginning of Endgame that there's really no point to, all right? And one of the writers and directors, one of the Russo brothers themselves plays the gay guy. Well, I finally went on a date with another guy. It was just so obvious that was shoehorned in there. It didn't add anything to the plot or anything at all. There was no purpose for it, right? Mm-hmm. So if you go back and listen to our shows from 5 years ago at this time, we kind of were like, we kind of wonder what the future holds, given the tea leaves that they're letting us read, right? Now, we had no idea there'd be lockdowns and shutdowns and everything else that's gone on, in the 5 years since. But I think this is an important benchmark. Because let me tell you what's happened to Disney and what's happened to Hollywood in the last 5 years since Endgame. Disney stock has declined right around 20% in the last 5 years. 20% in 5 years. Given the overall value of the company, that would equate to losses in the billions with a B. And that's, by the way, this is before we adjust for inflation. I'll adjust for inflation here in a minute. I'll tell you what that number would be. And the stock is currently trading at its pandemic levels. If you looked at a stock growth chart for Disney, you would see that it is currently trading at about what it traded at in April of 2020. And again, that's even worse when you adjust for inflation. But keep in mind, this is actually improvement. Disney's stock has improved 37% over the last 6 months since Bob Eisner was brought back, and investors thought he was going to save the company from its current infatuation and infestation with what Elon Musk calls the woke mind virus. Keep in mind, though, he was the one that began this. Remember, he was the one that went to war with Georgia over the heartbeat bill. Now, they didn't move any of their productions out of Georgia. Disney is still making many of its productions in Georgia as we speak. But the idea of politicizing Disney as a corporation actually began with Bob Eisner. And then his predecessor took that and went to the nines, went to war with the governor of Florida and all the other stuff that we've seen. All right. So Disney's stock had to improve 37% in the last 6 months just to get back to trading where it was during the pandemic when everything was shut down. Furthermore, this is not just a Disney problem. Last weekend, the total box office for every studio in Hollywood the last weekend in April was just $57 billion. In context, the worst weekend 5 years ago, the worst April weekend in 2019. So Endgame came out the last weekend in April. So this isn't that Endgame came out the first weekend in April and carried the box office for the entire month. It didn't come out until the last weekend of April. The lowest box office any weekend in April had in 2019 dollars was $95 million. That is a 61% drop before we factor in inflation. What happens when we factor in inflation? I went and looked those numbers up. You have to add another 23% to it. So add another 23%, and essentially the box office is down, gentlemen, over 80% from the worst weekend in April of 2019. Over 80%. That means all the Disney numbers I just gave you, add another 23% of losses to them too, when you adjust for inflation from 5 years ago. By the way, what does it say about inflation that you're adjusting to 23% in 5 years? Are you kidding me with that? 23% in 5 years? I mean, that's a separate conversation, but let's make sure we make a note of that. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? That's nuts. That's absolutely nuts. So last weekend I did what I've done for many, many years. You know, it used to be when we were growing up, Todd, Memorial Day weekend was the kind of or sometimes maybe the weekend before was, you know, school would basically be out or about to be out. And that was kind of the official beginning of the summer movie season. Marvel kind of changed that. The old Spider-Man movies with Tobey Maguire started coming out the first weekend in May. And so that's over 20 years ago. So for like Aaron's generation, the first weekend in May basically is the traditional start of the summer movie season, you know? So what I've typically done is just look down on the horizon, you know, the last weekend in April, what movies what might we be interested in seeing? And, you know, for many years, there was something coming out like almost every week that we might want to go see. I got to tell you, I mean, I did not find a lot of films I was like very interested in rushing out and seeing this upcoming summer movie season. There's a few I think look interesting. I think The Fall Guy that comes out this weekend kind of starts the summer movie season, looks interesting because it just looks like a regular movie. And given these numbers, I'm not alone in this assessment, by the way. So this is where we get into idolatry or not. So let me ask the question, now that I've shared this data, let me ask the question I started this with all over again. Are most of these corporations, such as Disney, so lost now to the spirit of the age that we could no longer pressure them? I mean, I know we ask a lot, what's it take to get out of our comfort zone and do more? But guys, an 80% loss in revenue in 5 years is an incredible statement by the American people. That's an incredible statement. When you consider how unchurched we are, how secular we are, the condition of the culture overall, there's not a lot of us. There's just not. For the culture at large to cost Hollywood 80% of the business it was getting this time 5 years ago is a yo. And yet, we don't hear about mass layoffs, mass firings, no uprisings of investors. Is the commitment to the cause so cemented now that no amount of losses will convince them otherwise? Like, imagine going down into the Valley of Ben Hinnom every summer, or every spring, I should say, to throw your baby into the fire from Molech. Last fall's harvest sucked, right? Because like God didn't give you any rain, didn't give you any crop because you're going down there to worship demons. So the real God didn't. So the previous harvest sucked. The harvest before that sucked. The harvest before that sucked. People just went down to the Valley of Ben Hinnom and Molech harder. Well, I guess we got to be, you see what I'm saying? I mean, the idolatry was so cemented that a really bad harvest or two wasn't enough to get people to say, I think, guys, that maybe this isn't the way to, have our crops turn out and have our wives get pregnant. I think this is not going well. Let's try something else. No, it literally took sulfur and ash and Nebuchadnezzar laying siege to the civilization to get it to stop. Are we at that level of idolatry here that not even 80% losses in revenues have every studio head's board of directors firing every decision maker the Monday after this last weekend? And instead, no one's even talking about it. And probably most people didn't even know about this until I just brought it up. What are your thoughts? Aaron, I'll start with you.
So I don't think we're asking the right question, or not exactly asking the most precise question. And I want to lay it out in these terms. I've talked about my affinity for Catholic architecture in their church, in their tradition. And if you went to any of the popular contractors here, let's just say in West Des Moines. You live in West Des Moines, you live in kind of the Jordan Creek area. That's a nice area. Okay, the architecture is pretty uniform, at least in the original Jordan. It's kind of this faux Italian kind of motif that they've got going. Yeah. It's nice there. It's not necessarily enduring. The materials that they used are kind of the same that's used everywhere, but it's nice looking. Todd, I don't know what year your church building that you attend was built. I don't know if you know off the top of your head. Mine was probably, I think in the original part was maybe in the early 90s, late 90s. Steve, probably the same type of thing for the building you're currently in. I know you guys are moving to a different building soon. Not necessarily enduring pieces of architecture. Mm-hmm. If you went to any of the popular contractors just here in central Iowa, in Des Moines, and said to them, I want you to take this beautiful cathedral that was built 500 or 1,000 years ago in Europe, and I want you to copy that, although with your own style, but I want you to copy that. But don't use any of the modern means of constructing such structures. I want you to build it the same way. You can use cranes. You can use some of the modern methods of actually lifting things into place. But in terms of structure, I want it to be built the exact same way. The masonry, the exact same way that it was built 500 or 1,000 years ago. No cost spared whatsoever. Do you think they'd know how to do that? Do you think they'd know? I'm asking, do you think they'd know how to do that? Just any contractor here in a place like Iowa, or even a bigger city like Chicago or Dallas. Mm-hmm. No. Most builders have forgot that way we made those magnificent cathedrals. That's been forgotten. So when I say we're not asking the right question or not asking the precise question, I think it's actually a worse explanation than kind of you've posited, or at least evoked. It's not that they don't want to make the types of movies like Endgame, or the types of
they're incapable.
They're incapable of it. Yeah. They've forgotten.
In 5 years.
In 5 years, yes.
Brilliant, Aaron. And you're talking about market forces. Well, it is bigger and it is worse, because when did we care about passing a budget in Congress or the national debt? So that part is out. And also the culture, it's not just the spirit of the age within Hollywood or within cinema. They're not going to respond to it because they know that the spirit of the age is just as rotten corporately, culture-wide. And listen, the simple fact of the matter is most of the people who went to these movies regularly are really, yes, now it's been made an idol by the left permanently, but let's face it, it was our idol too. We're just mad that they took our idol away. There's this guy who has this video right now. I just saw it today for the first time, but he said he laid down this list of movies that a lot of us would like, series. He talks about Star Wars. He talks about Hunger Games. He mentions like 5 or 6 different series, and he says, in all of those, we watch those and we cheer, and we're with the rebels. And the rebels are clearly the good guys, and we cheer for them. I've made this point about Braveheart before. We love the speech, and then we go out, and then we have excuses and reasons we can't get involved. This guy's absolutely right. He says, in real life, we always side with the Empire. By default, at the very least. He's absolutely right. We just want our own idol back. Guys, we're not supposed to care. It's supposed to be the gravy. But and in those things, in the hero movies, it's mostly men. We're not supposed to care this much. Maybe a nice thing, take the family out, have some fun. But we passively order our lives around being entertained, around escaping. That's not what men are supposed to do. We're not supposed to escape. There's this fascinating dietary study that I'm going to apply to this. Mexicans eat more real corn, regular corn, But they did a study of them versus Americans, and Americans had more carbon byproduct in their system because high fructose corn syrup and everything like that. That's who we as Americans and as Christians has become, even when we were going to see Endgame and things like that. It wasn't real food. We weren't inspired by it. We didn't change our lives because of it. We let it replace the actual real food. A bunch of Christians love those movies. They're great. But
Whatever it takes was just a great line in a movie.
It wasn't, all of them. Pick one.
It wasn't
Pick
something to go out
genre.
and live with.
But at the same time, over the same, and that's another excellent analogy, Todd.
Yeah, it is.
Over the same period of time, though, Steve, we've talked about this trend on this show. What's kind of been ascending during that same period of time, during the last 5 years? Filmmaking from people with worldviews more in line with maybe the one that this show espouses has been ascendant. Is it nearly, in terms of production value, always the same as what we've been accustomed to from Hollywood? Absolutely not. But the storytelling is ascending. It is amongst Christian aligned or adjacent storytellers and filmmakers, because they're the ones who have not forgotten, if you will, the old magic. That's maybe a term that's going to piss off a few people, but they're the ones that at least are supposed to be the vanguard of the way of storytelling, of telling a compelling narrative. They've not forgotten that, or at least not yet anyway, at least in some pockets. That's been ascendant, but it's kind of apples and oranges, though, still at this point.
I'm just saying, we got to be honest. Disney and hero movies, ascendant since the 50s. The 50s, synonymous with which generation? The baby boomers starting. Has our culture gone up or down? It's clearly gone down. We've had great movies. We just had Endgame. Did Endgame prepare us for dealing with COVID? We're lying to ourselves. This is where going back is not worth it. It numbed us. It made us comfortable that we're just supposed to clap. Somebody else is supposed to be the hero, but not me. I'm just supposed to clap for it and be entertained. And it's largely men. Your superhero movies have not prepared you. Batman has not prepared you. Luke Skywalker has not prepared you. He's made you stupid and weak and soft.
It is ironic that in an era where we have struggled to recreate Superman as a winning franchise, America's original mythological hero, him and Paul Bunyan, basically, because the idea of altruistic beings doing what is good for the good, just we don't relate to. And yet, so Batman has become more popular, the permanently broken vessel, but yet we identify with that, but we don't identify with the aspect of Batman that says, because of my brokenness, I've got to do something about this. Someone's got to do something about this, so I guess it's on me to do something about it. I mean, that's the part of it that we kind of just overlook that. When Tolkien and Lewis decided that they needed to re-inspire the West with their own fantasy tales, it was to inspire the West to greatness, not to inspire Jimmy Page to borrow lyrics from their books right next to his Aleister Crowley readings. That's not what it was written for. It was to inspire people to rise up and you know, replicate those heroic exploits in their era and time. More in a moment. You know, there are those who lead, and then there are those who follow, and when it's time for you to buy or sell a house, particularly in the Let's Go Brandon market, you want the kind of person who is the former, not the latter. And that's where Real Estate Agents I Trust comes in. And we don't want you to venture into the uncertainty of these unprecedented times.
Bang.
And 7.92% mortgage rates and everything else, 100% higher mortgage payments than what you were paying if you had a new mortgage, a 30-year new mortgage the day Joe Biden took office. You need help. We all do. So make sure you get it from the absolute best. A lot of times these agents are from right here in this audience. So they share a similar value system with you as well. They're going to be the top sellers in that area. They're going to know the best practices to get you to where you want to go, whether that's across town or across the country. This is where you want to go before you go in. realestateagentsitrust.com. Get yourself one of those. Name says it all. realestateagentsitrust.com. Well, theme today, as it has been quite frequently on this show over the last few years, where are the men? And we need doers, not just talkers, not just scrollers. All right. We're joined now by a guy who is attempting to do something. TJ Roberts is running for state representative in Kentucky. And we're particularly interested in this race because he also went after his governor during COVID for his violations of our constitutional rights as well. And so now he is running for public office so that this and other injustices we are currently suffering do not happen again. TJ, it's a pleasure to have you with us here on The Blaze, brother. How are you?
Doing well, Steve. Thank you for having me on.
So tell us a little bit about you. I kind of gave the audience a couple of the highlights, but who's TJ Roberts?
Sure. So I'm a native of Boone County, Kentucky. That is right next to Cincinnati, Ohio. I've been a born-again Christian since I was 13 years old, regularly attending church, and was largely brought up through conservative activists with the Tea Party movement. It was more of a hobby than anything, more scrolling, just complaining about the state of American affairs on the internet. Then I get more involved with organizations like Young Americans for Liberty, the National Association for Gun Rights, Students for Rand Paul. Then it goes from a side hustle to something that's more serious, because at this point it becomes a fight for existence, in my opinion. That was in 2020 when on Good Friday, Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear held a press conference saying that his mass gathering ban will apply to those attending church services. He even says this will apply to Easter Sunday. He says if you go to church, you will have a prosecution notice placed on your windshield stating that you either have to serve 2 weeks of what he called quarantine, what I called house arrest, or face up to 1 year in jail for violating his order. I was one of the people who decided I'm going to go to church anyway, and I'm going to risk it. I felt like he may be bluffing. I felt like we'll see if he actually follows through on this. He was not bluffing. I attended a church service, and I came out to a prosecution notice on my windshield, and I filed a federal lawsuit the very next day. We actually lost at the district court level, but then we appealed it to the United States Sixth Circuit, and fortunately a unanimous judge panel said that Andy Beshear violated the First Amendment free exercise of religion clause. So that was a very major breaking point to show like the Constitution still applies in a national emergency. It was one of the first victories that we really had on the religious liberty grounds, and it was the precedent that the Supreme Court later used to strike down what Andrew Cuomo and Gavin Newsom were doing in California. So that was incredible to be such a small part of it, of just what you can accomplish by standing up and refusing to take tyranny sitting down. From there, I get more heavily involved in pro-liberty, anti-corruption activism. I've been fighting for legislation such as making it impossible for states to lock down ever again, particularly in Kentucky. Fighting for medical freedom, fighting against fighting against taxpayer-funded lobbyists, which, by the way, is a very common practice across the United States. And then in 2024, I made the decision to run for state representative after it became clear that my current state representative was going to run for state senate. Fortunately, he did a very good job in the legislature. He has been a champion for medical freedom, but he decided his services were better suited in the state senate. So he decided to go for state senate. I decided to go for state house. He has endorsed me. I've endorsed him. Right now, I am honored to have the support of organizations like the National Association for Gun Rights, Kentucky Right to Life, and individuals like Congressman Thomas Massey, the incumbent in this seat, the chairman of my county Republican Party, and so many other people who have come out in support of me. It's been a surreal experience.
Your story reminds me a lot of Shelley Luther in Dallas, Texas, the hairdresser there who defied the COVID ordinances there. And then she's running for state house now in Texas and just won her primary, and looking at her district, she's likely to be elected this fall. But what's rare about your story, unfortunately, is we've not seen a lot of men, honestly, the last few years going down the path of resistance that you did. And so thank you for that. And I like the fact now resistance is a great start, but ultimately power is where power goes. We have to seek positions where power can be wielded so that it cannot therefore be wielded against us. And so to me, one of the primary places where that's occurring right now is at the state level, where we have seen states like what Florida has done, practicing the old founding doctrines of interposition and doctrine of the lesser magistrate and putting those things into practice. You've seen some of that with the Attorney General in Texas as well. So I think that what you're modeling, TJ, number one, is you did not comply with them trying to take your God-given freedoms away. That was number one. You did not comply with that which was evil. You fought back and resisted that which is evil. But now comes the next step is we have to now make sure that people who know what is right and wrong and want to do something about evil actually have the power to make policy and to govern. Otherwise, the people who don't, they will use that power against us.
That's absolutely correct. I've always been a skeptic of big government. I've always been a skeptic of the omnipotent state. And it's because of things like what happened to me that made me so skeptical about it. And in many ways, I thought that we could avoid this fight by just living our lives, starting a family, all those things, which you should still do by all means. But then you have to realize, like, if you don't take this power, someone else is going to take this power and they are going to use it against you.
I just want to be left alone. I just want to be left alone loses in every history book ever, unfortunately. Because when we get to the point where that needs to even be said, the war is already on. You see what I'm saying? Like if I need to say, I don't care. You can settle that with God in eternity, not my fight. Leave me out. If we get to the point that you have to say that, the social compact is broken and the war and the fight is on. Go ahead.
That's exactly right. And we can talk about my opponent, for example. He's the former president of the National School Board Association, the organization that tried to use the Patriot Act to declare parents as terrorists for showing up at school board meetings. He was on the committee on whether or not Andy Beshear should have been impeached for what he did to me and hundreds of churchgoers. He was one of the votes who decided that he should remain in office. He is, frankly, he is the king of the swamp in Kentucky. Fortunately, he lost in 2022 by a considerable margin because Boone County voters had enough. And that's one of the pieces of good news of what all has happened since 2020, Steve, is that people are finally awake because we finally got to a point where the government was targeting our families, was targeting our children, was targeting our churches. And that's just a point where most Americans, they're going to get sick and tired of it. They're going to start paying attention and they're going to rise up because, as you've mentioned, most Americans, they do just want to be left alone. But the fact that they have to say that shows that we have gone so far from what the Constitution allows. And it's about time that we have people actually standing up and talking about men finally standing up. You're right. It actually has overwhelmingly been women. I've actually met Shelley Luther in the past. She's incredible. But here in Kentucky, two of our strongest fighters have been women. Since 2018, we had Savannah Maddox in the state house. She's incredible. She was the sponsor of the bill to get rid of the vaccine mandates, get rid of the lockdowns. She was also the sponsor of constitutional carry, Campus Free Speech Act. She has been a stalwart champion for constitutional conservative. Then you have Felicia Rayburn, who was the one member of the impeachment committee who voted that Andy Beshear should have been kicked out of office for what he did. She was the only one that had the courage to stand up and say what he did was such a breach of our Constitution that he deserves to be removed from office. So you're right. It has been women who have been fighting, taking on the fight that, frankly, us men, we've been failing to do.
Let's see if we can inspire some other potential TJ Roberts in the audience before we let you go, brother. So a little bit more about you. You have like a superhuman level of strength?
I do not.
Now, are you a 9th degree black belt in judo or any of the martial arts?
I am a black belt, but I am not a 9th degree black belt.
Is there even such a thing? I don't know, but I tried to come up with something that sounded preposterous. All right. You ever dance with the devil in the pale moonlight? Do you know the formula to cold fusion? Have you memorized all 66 books of the Bible, including in their original Hebrew Codex and Latin Vulgate?
I have not done any of those things. Frankly, I'm nothing special. I'm just a representative of an idea, which is that government of, by, and for the people is the government that governs best. We need limited government. We need to make sure that faith, family, and freedom are the foundations of our society, not an out-of-control administrative state. That's all that I am. Other than that, I'm nothing special.
So you're just a regular guy. That's it. Just a regular guy with convictions that you want to act on. That's it.
That's correct. I'm just a regular guy who went to church.
I hope that that's encouraging to a lot of people in our audience, because we need more guys doing what this guy is doing. Thank you, brother. And let us know, before we let you go, how can people learn more about your candidacy and support it if they want to?
Certainly. So my website is votetjr.com. You can also follow me on X, which is @realtjroberts. If you have questions directly, I'm an open book. I have a campaign email, but I prefer that you just text me. My phone number is 859-446-0185. Most politicians don't exactly give out their phone number, but as far as I'm concerned, if I'm asking for the ability to bind 4.5 million people by law, by introducing legislation, the least I can do is give them direct access to me to yell at me when they disagree with me.
I like it. So, hey, we had a politician's cell phone go out, and it wasn't because Donald Trump put it out against their will. I like it. So again, make sure, give the website one more time. It's votetjr.com, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. votetjr.com is where you can go to learn more or support. Or maybe you think, you know what, maybe I want to be the next TJ Roberts. The more the merrier. Courage can be contagious as well. votetjr.com. Thank you, brother. Appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You bet. Brought to you by our friends over at Relief Factor. Remember back in the day when you could do all the normal things that didn't make you sore, stiff, achy, and you've just decided, I'm just going to have to deal with this the rest of my life. That might be true, but it's probably not. If you tried Relief Factor, no, we're going to say probably, can't say definitely, because it's not a panacea. But over the years, over 1 million people have tried the 3-week quick start from Relief Factor. And about 70% of them have seen, so probably about 70% of them have seen such great results in 3 weeks or less that they stuck with the product long term. It's a drug-free supplement created by physicians who can prescribe drugs with the intent of going after the inflammation that is the actual cause likely of your chronic pain. If you want to give it a shot, what do you have to lose for 3 weeks? All right, with the feel better or your money back guarantee. Because if you don't feel better, just let them know. They'll give you your $20 back at the end of the 3 weeks. Get the 3-week quick start today at relieffactor.com. Again, head over to relieffactor.com. Feel the difference at relieffactor.com. All right, gentlemen, your thoughts on the conversation we just had with TJ Roberts or any of the other conversations we've had here today in the final 3 minutes left in the program?
Well, being a regular guy, that's an important theme. What it is and what it isn't. As a regular guy, you're supposed to have and it doesn't matter, rich, poor, highborn, any of that stuff. Just being a regular dude code stuff, you're supposed to have a healthy reflex to getting screwed with your pants on. And you're supposed to want to do something about it instead of watching your children's life suffer or your country burn. Being a guy is not a leisure pursuit. You're not supposed to be this passive in your life. You're not supposed to be this emasculated and always looking for the out. And that's who most of us are in this modern male universe. It's a loser's game, and it's your choice whether you want to play it or not.
I thought the point that he made, we've said it in different ways, but I think the way that he said it was just right on point. Essentially, it's this. If you're one of the people who you're at the point where you're just saying, I want to be left alone, you are at the closest point to being never left alone again for the rest of your life. Mm-hmm. I surely hope that he is right. That when people are at that point, though, it is a point of waking up to the reality of the situation. We had many of those opportunities back now 4 years ago in 2020. And I pray that people really are actually aware of what needs to be done, what's being done to them, and what's being threatened. Because these Pleasant Valley Sundays that we've been able to enjoy almost to excess and really past the point of excess in too many situations, too many examples of those are just about this close to really never being realized again, not for generations. So I hope he's right that people are, when they are at that point, that they really wake up and smell the napalm. Because, like he said, if you are at the point where your instinct is to say, I wish people would leave me alone, they're never going to leave you alone. And they're this close to never leaving you alone again.
I don't think we can stress that enough. When you are in any form of a free society, if you have to say, I want to just be left alone, it's already too late to say that. That is a baseline expectation in a free society. The baseline expectation in a free society is, I don't want to rock the boat. I don't want to impose too much of me on you, because then you might get the opportunity. Ain't no fun when the rabbit's got the gun, right? You might have too much of an opportunity to impose too much of you on me, right? Mm-hmm. That's one of the presuppositions within the social compact of a free society. Is one side of the argument can't go too far unless we're dealing with things that everybody agrees is bad. Of course, we don't have even that in our society right now either, okay? In many respects, I'm talking about a country that doesn't largely exist anymore. All right, but if you have to say, I want to be left alone, it's already too late to say that. And they're not going to leave you alone till you make them. Romans 8:28.